Well, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning. Issues in the news worthy of discussion are some criticism coming from former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. He's been very critical of two projects. First, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, pegged at 15 trillion naira to execute, and the refurbishment of the Vice President's residence, where 21 billion naira was expended. Now, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo recently celebrated another year on Mother Earth. Amidst the celebration was another controversial moment as well. Joining us on the program this morning to wade into the issues in the news is Dr. Ben Agunloye. Mr. Ben Agunloye, rather.
Good morning.
I'm hoping that you pick up one of those doctorates soon, though. It might be in the best interest of the good work you're doing. Welcome to our studios.
Well,
Thank you.
Good morning once again. He has laid the precedent to this conversation, and I'm sure you have a full grasp of what the former president's concerns are about some of these spendings that might be considered unnecessary.
Well, maybe the vice president house, I have my reservation.
Okay.
But when it comes to the coastal road, I think that the coastal road is long overdue.
Why so?
Number one, we will continue to navigate along the coast. We needed it.
Yes.
The water had not been safe enough. People have water phobia and a number of other things. Because there are no roads along the coast, security-wise, it has its own implication. We couldn't do some form of patrols that should actually have help on the land along the coastal environment. And of course, you will look at, for the purpose of tourism.
Yes.
I'm one of those who believe in travels and tours. Now, the climate or the vegetation, when you are going, if you have ever traveled from Port Harcourt to Calabar, you will know that, look, it's a great scene to see. And so completing that all the way from Lagos through the coast to Calabar would be great. Yes, some have said, oh, it's not passing through the southeast. No, you call it coastal road. So it should run along the coast.
Including the southeast.
The south, if there is a part of the southeast that is on the coast, it should
run.
But if they are not on the coast, you call it the coastal road.
Yeah.
Take note of that. It is a coastal road.
So technically, from Nigeria's map, we find that the southeast does not necessarily have a coast in that sense.
Yeah.
Most of the coasts are off the south and perhaps the southwest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, therefore, those who are contending or challenging the project for not running through the southeast, I think they do not understand the English word coastal road. Now, when former President Buhari made that assertion of the southeast is like dirt in the cycle, what he was trying to say was that, look, the southeast does not have any boundary outside Nigeria, whether to the sea or to any other country. That is a place that is fully within the nation. So even if eventually you want anything self-determination, your only boundaries will still remain Nigeria and Nigerians. I think that's where you got the idea of saying it's like a dot.
Which had sparked off a lot of debates back then. People were agitated, especially of the southeastern origin.
Yeah. So he wasn't saying they were small. He was only trying to paint that picture that, hey, even if you go, the entire boundary will still be within Nigeria. So when you are talking about the coastal road, that's why for me, when they say coastal rail, and then you brought the rail to come and run through Benin and Onitsha, for me, it is no longer coastal.
It's just a rail project.
You can just call it an east-west
rail project.
It's definitely not a coastal rail. If it's coastal, I've seen coastal road in some other countries, and sometimes some of them are basically or mostly used for tourism. You might say if you are going to some part of the country, it may not be fast. But fortunately for us, the road from Calabar to Lagos will not only be for tourism. It's actually going to be a shorter distance and a shorter time than passing through Benin and Onitsha to go to the.
And Mr. Ben,
Calabar.
a lot of people have undeniably, much like yourself, lauded the positive angles of this project, but the controversies have stemmed from the award of contracts. It's also stemmed from compensation that needed to have been paid. I don't know if you followed quite the viral drama between the Minister of Works, Engineer David Umahi, and one of our colleagues when she asked for insights into the documents as it concerns compensation and the award of contracts. The former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, much like his principal, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, had also called the project a scam in a way, owing to those discrepancies. Do you see reasons why?
Well, now, calling for transparency is not equal to condemning the project. If you are talking about the merit of the project, a Lagos-Calabar coastal road, as long as it is coastal, for me, is a great idea for the nation Nigeria. It's going to be good for us both on tourism, it's going to help security in some way, it's going to help transportation, and of course, like I would say, is a tourism highway, no doubt about that. So if you have something that is good that should be done, something that should have been done even in the 70s or the 60s, if we're just talking about it now, I think that it should be done. Now, let's separate the issue from the people. The issue at stake for me is that that project needs to be done. If, as far as I'm concerned, it should even be done more quicker and in a more speedy way. It shouldn't be a 48, 60 months project. It should be a project 1 or 2 years. Finish it. When it is done, I can tell you that a lot of other activities will come up along that route, and whatever had been expended in putting it together, we can be sure that over time, the states along that route and the nation as a whole will begin to recover the cost.
In what
because
way?
it will have added benefit. Of course, it's going to aid transportation.
In what way would the government be able to recover these funds expended on a highway?
When activity starts on that road, government can decide to toll. Government will definitely earn tax. You see, it's an heavy production belt also. Yeah. Fish, pond, all agricultural product, banana, plantain,
crisscrossing the coastal area.
Crisscrossing the coastal area. A lot is available in Cross River. A lot is available in Akwa Ibom. A lot is available in rivers. A lot are locked up in Bayelsa that doesn't even come out. A coastal road makes the people nearer to the rest of the world. So it means that in terms of the kind of food and that comes up from that zone, you can access better market. When you access the market, it contributes to food security. Right?
Yes.
When you decide to process, definitely there will be people earning salary, there will be industries coming up along that corridor.
Now this is Mr. Ben, this is you giving a proper, breakdown and illustration into what the projections, economic projections and benefits of this coastal road will bring about to Nigeria. However, the former president's concerns is the fact that this project would gulp up a whopping 15.6 trillion naira. That is a humongous amount of money to begin with. And secondly, he was of the opinion that it's more transactional than for the economic benefits and good of Nigerians, citing the pidgin slogan, "It is my turn to chop," or "Now my turn to chop." And he has been very critical of Engineer David Umahi.
Let's take it this way.
Okay.
The 16 billion expended in $16 billion expended in power generation.
Yes.
That we never saw it. We saw the darkness after he left office under President Obasanjo, right? Former President Obasanjo.
Yeah.
Take that figure to naira and tell me how many trillion it is today.
In today's exchange rate.
What will it be? Bring the 15 trillion they claim back to dollar and tell me how it compares. This is a road project. Now, when you come to power generation, I read physics. And in school, my lecturers will say one of the easiest way to deceive everybody in power is to say you want to generate. I said, why? He said generation is like rainwater. If you don't have what we use to preserve or distribute it, it falls and it is wasted. You can't talk about yesterday rain tomorrow for you to drink water if you don't have storage.
Because you did not store.
He said so in many places where you even have the generation plant, ask Nigerian that then in school you would ask people in Lagos how many of them knew where Egbintama station is. He said, but if you come to distribution, everybody will see the cable. Everybody will go and inspect the transformer that you have put on their street. People will see the meters that you have put in their houses.
But generation.
But when it is generation, he said there is a limit to the question anybody can ask. Today, my little boy would always say, he said, Daddy, when you listen to news, they say they are using gas. He said, why is it that when the rain stop and we are in January and then we are entering February, he said NEPA will be they will be taking light. Anyhow, NEPA has been scrapped before he was born, but we still call them NEPA. Everybody still call them NEPA.
Yes.
He said they will begin to take light anyhow. He said, does it not mean that it is water that is generating the power that we are consuming? That's the reason. That's the reasoning of a 7-year-old.
That has always been the rationale behind power generation in the country. And if you talk about the Mambila Power Project, it was basically domiciled there due to the enormous level of current and water in situated in the Gembu Mambila axis of Sardauna local government area in Taraba State. Now, interestingly, not just within the administration of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, even during former President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure, there were talks of funds being released for the Mambila Power Project right from time immemorial. I think historically, the Mambila Power Project had started, the talks surrounding it had started right from the 70s.
Yeah. And
then government after government, administration after administration, both in the military, civilian rule, up until today, there is still no dam.
So basically, you want to look at it that, therefore, if you have anybody in government who decide to run a project that should be done, we need Mambila Power Project like yesterday, not just because of the power, but because of the water that will form a hub for irrigation in that axis.
Yes.
Taraba State as a state is more than twice the entire southeast put together. So it tells you therefore that there is a lot of land.
Yes.
Now Taraba had a span of vegetation. The down part of Taraba is almost like a forest belt. And then you go from forest to savanna to Sahel in the same state.
Even in the Mambila Plateau, it's just an array of mountains and lots of vegetation stretching all the way into the Cameroons.
So when you look at that clearly, that water from Mambila would have done a lot to our food security in the name of irrigation if that project had been completed. So there is the power generating, there are the other activities in aquaculture, there is of course the activity in agriculture. And of course there is a way you can also use it to help navigation. I always say that Nigeria is the most well-drained nation in the world. Every state in Nigeria has a water channel or something that you can call a river. Some may be seasonal, some of course are there all year round with the volume coming up and down. So with the level of drainage that God has given us, we shouldn't have reason relying on rain-fed agriculture. Our agricultural system should have put together all those things into use. Now, not to run away from the coastal road that you started with, the reality is that that project is needed. Now, getting it done is okay. If there are issues with transparency, point out the issues of transparency. If it's possible, all of them have access to NGOs. Go to court and challenge what you think is opaque in the project, but not condemn the project itself. As far as I'm concerned, it is something that we needed like yesterday.
Now,
so doing it, it's not a crime. But compensation, if people have been undervalued or overvalued, let's sit down and put down the right value. So if independent people come up with the right value, present it to the public that we think that this compensation is under, this compensation is over. This contract, we think the value is wrong. Renegotiate. If so, we can call for renegotiation. You can go to court and press for certain things as citizens and as stakeholders in the nation. But to condemn the project in any way, I think it is disservice and unpatriotic of anyone, whether young or old, who is doing that.
Mr. Ben, let's go back to the issue of the official residence of the vice president that had been earmarked, that 21 billion naira had been earmarked for. Now, the former president, away from being critical of the coastal highway, was also critical of this particular, disbursement of such humongous amount of money. You said you had your own personal reservations to it. Do you care to share that with us?
Well, each time I pass that place, I think that place should be an hotel, not somebody's residence. I still think that the government, till tomorrow, give it out to an international consortium to manage, and then it will be like a special guest house.
Because the vice president doesn't even stay there.
Nobody is staying there as of now. So people who had money or who wanted the luxury can walk in there and have their honeymoon, have their holiday, use the facilities. Rather than, so for me, it's not about how much you have spent, it is that facility is now there. So put it to a proper use. I have not been to the US, but I've heard people who said, oh, there is a part of the White House where citizens can actually have holiday or have a walk or have whatever. Yeah. That could be our own version. The vegetation is good, the environment is right, you can man the security appropriately, and so people from all over the world can come in there and do whatever
or maybe
rather than tie down the money and leave the facility.
Or maybe even dub it a tourism name, like have access to the State House or have access to the vice president's residence in Nigeria, and people would pay good money to come and take a look at that. Come in there, even if they are not going to lodge there or sleep over, but at least it should be some sort of revenue generating.
That's it.
Infrastructure.
So maybe you concession it if you can't run it directly, and I'm sure that there are people in travel and tour business, people in hospitality business
that can take care of it
effectively and bring value to the table.
Right. Now let's move on to another issue that has been greeted with mixed reactions. Whilst on the one hand, a lot of people have commended the president for wading into the Lagos Assembly crisis with the reinstatement of Speaker Obasa. A meeting was held at the Aso Villa yesterday where Obasa and other members of the Lagos Assembly were present. But others are questioning what was the purpose of the Baba Bisi Akonde panel to look into the issue and make recommendations in that regard. I don't know which side of the divide you sit on this morning. Is it commendations for President Tinubu, or much like those questioning the relevance of the Baba Bisi Akonde panel?
Well, I would neither want to comment.
You can't sit on the fence. I would not agree that you sit on the fence, Mr.
No, I'm going to see it because this is my approach to it. People have elected those 40 guys into the assembly to represent them. Yes, they have represented different parties, and the majority party should produce the speaker. I believe to an extent in party supremacy, right? But also, these individuals you should remember that they are elected by their constituency. You see, over time we do things that would always bring us back to that point. And that point is that we are a parliamentary people. And so there is no way we can run the presidential system and run it properly. And that's what
because the basis for our independence in the first place, we started off as a parliamentary.
No, not even because we started off, by our culture and tradition. We are a parliamentary people.
Even from the traditional
every part of Nigeria run one form of parliamentary system or the other. Maybe in the north, it is the Emma that sends his children to go and be district chiefs over his districts. In the west, each district have their own representative who come in as an high chief and sit in the council to take decision, which he brings back to his district, which the district family heads meet with him, and they take it back to their individual families to run. So to an extent, that's what I see playing out more. A lot of things we do betray us as a parliamentary people. In India, I think there is a way they call it. They call them local. Is it local foreign chicken with local foreign birds with local work?
Oh, okay.
Foreign birds with local work. Why do they call people that? He's travel to the UK or the US and then he come back, he's speaking phone. But every other thing he's doing, you still can see that, oh, this man is still pretty much an Indian. The only thing that is different is the phonetics. So basically, he will still eat what they eat, will still walk what they walk, will still rush the bus, will still rush the train like every other person.
Only that he's
foreign. When he's speaking, he's trying to be what? To be foreign. So we are trying to be a presidential people. When indeed deep-seated within us, we are always parliamentary. Otherwise, when you have selected them into the house, they should have the independence to take certain decisions. If they think this person is no longer fit to lead them, they can actually get him to go. You know, if it has been a parliamentary system, the system is slightly different. It is the individuals who possibly were in his cabinet that will resign and say he must what? Resign. And sometimes they will even say, let's go for a midterm election, or let's do this, let's do that. All those are not applicable in the presidential system.
Now, Mr. Ben,
you see us from time to time bending backward, right, to bring out the parliamentary nature in us in trying to resolve crisis.
Mr. Ben, let's go back to the genesis of this particular crisis in the Lagos State House of Assembly. It was surrounding a certain impeachment move made on Obasa while he was on official assignment in the United States.
He was not on official assignment.
He was away in the United States. He wasn't around in Lagos. He wasn't in the country when that impeachment happened. And in my opinion, and I believe in the opinion of many observers of the crisis unfolding in the Lagos State House of Assembly, I think that the Deputy Speaker, talking about Princess Miranda, as well as those other lawmakers, would not have been able to man up to impeach Obasa if he had been present in the country when that impeachment took place.
Well, we might say that.
Okay.
But it's also not impossible that even if he were to be around, yes, he would receive.
Why was it done while he was away?
Well, they were on recess, so they claim. He has not fixed a date for resumption, so to say. But then they were in a function the previous day, and before you knew it, he's jet out of the country without possibly even telling any of his colleagues. He was not, much as I know up till now, nobody has said he was on official assignment.
He has claimed that he was on an official
So
assignment.
who did he inform? If he was going to be on official assignment and he has 40 colleagues, he has a deputy, right? Official assignment that will take you to the US.
Yes.
That distance, there could have been any call for emergency meeting in your absence. There should have been a provision
for a replacement.
For what happens if you were not around. So if he travels without notifying any of his 39 subordinates, now before his speaker means first among equal.
Yes.
The 40 of them are equal. Then you left without telling anybody. What you are saying in essence is you own the house, you own them.
He's back as a speaker, Mr. Ben. Oh, all right.
One of the accusations against him was high-handedness. And the fact that he doesn't carry them, and larger than life attitude. And that's what is displayed in that trip. Even in the short time that he's been back, we've also seen that. He has a case in court. You sued the others for impeaching you. Now you are back as speaker. And the first thing you would also do is to go to court and change the defense counsel. You are the plaintiff. You have no right to determine who would defend the defendant. But he has done that.
Now, is it Obasa's fault that he has done that? So what about the judiciary that should be privy to this information that you are laying bare on the table
No,
on this show right
he
now.
is the Speaker of the House.
He's the Speaker of the House, but is he above the judiciary?
The judiciary is a blind scale.
Okay.
You watch a film. There used to be an Indian film that was popular when we were young. They call it "The Law Is Blind." The man has been arrested and has been placed in prison. He finally finds a way to escape from prison and murder the people who wrongly accused him and return to the prison. The records in the house of the person he has gone to murder indicated that he murdered him. But the record in the prison did not show
that he
escaped. It was where they left him. And so he couldn't be tried. He couldn't. So the police said he couldn't have committed the crime. That is the law. The law is blind. He is the Speaker. The case is against the Speaker. So ordinarily, if he wasn't high-handed and larger than life the way he claimed, now that he's back as the Speaker, he simply should just have withdrawn the case, not changing the defendant. Because you are still the plaintiff in this matter. But changing the defendant without consulting the 35 House members.
The 39 House members.
No, 35. It was 35 that was involved in the suit. Without considering the 35 that are listed on the suit, tells you clearly that the accusation against him as feeling larger than life and being autocratic was actually genuine. But like we said, yes, there is the party supremacy. There is the party supremacy. So if the party had a direction they want to go, they can. But he as an individual definitely need to do some things different. It's sad that you are leading a house of 40 and 32 or 36 will be against you.
Now let's talk about his relationship with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu vis-a-vis his relationship with the Lagos State Governor.
Yeah.
I know the GAC and Baba Bisi Akonde panel had their reservations, but it almost seems as though his friendship as the longest serving speaker with the president supersedes all these other arrangements. Do you think the president is cutting him some slack?
Well, perhaps. Now it's when I think it was the tax reform bill, my opinion was that some of the people who opposed it at the initial stage did not oppose it because they think it was wrong, but they opposed it because they felt they were not carried along.
Yeah.
They felt their ego were not massaged. Now, the president's first reaction to Obasa's impeachment was that this is a civilian coup. Why did he call it a civilian coup? It was not done in the open. There were not enough consultation with the elders and the leaders of the party. And perhaps particularly he himself was not carried along. So there is also that tendency of saying, as the leader of the party, I should have been carried along
to sanction this.
To sanction this. And because you have not done it, so it's more like you have to revert to status quo. Go back to what I knew last about this process.
And consult me before taking any further decision.
And of course, what you also need to know in human relationship, in politics, and in a number of things is sometimes senior politicians want to hang a baggage on you. So I see, in my opinion, the president's support for Obasa is more of hanging a baggage on him.
In what way?
You've done these things wrong, we know. But we would allow you
carry on.
To
complete your term.
We will allow you to carry on. But somewhere in the future, they are going to need him to do something. And then he's not going to do it, right? That is, you see in Yoruba, they say, Okute esin, ese wanta. Which means these things are not completely covered. They are in the open. We are only managing it for you. So if eventually you don't respect the party's decision at some other point going forward, the same party will then reverse or can then reverse to punish you.
Please, Mr. Ben, take us back to the Yoruba adage you just said now.
Okute esin, ese yosita. That is, you have buried somebody in secret.
Yes.
But the leg, that is the grave is shallow. So that corpse can still be can still be exhumed, and you can get punished for being the one who either killed him or buried him illegally.
Now, I'm not very fluent in Yoruba. I would have reiterated what you just said, but carrying this adage in its entire meaning, are we looking at 2027 with regards to this?
2027 is still a long distance.
Talking about the governorship position in Lagos State.
Is there, right? Waiting. But even before 2027, in politics, 24 hours is a long time. So a lot can still happen before 2027.
But Obasa has indirectly always insinuated that he wants to run for the governorship of Lagos State.
But with all that he has done in the house,
a statement that started the rift between him and Governor Sanwo-Olu, where he said that if he wanted to, he could run and he will win in Lagos State. Yes. And now we hear talks that the president's son, due to the many consultations and visits that he has been doing across the country, is sort of clearing the grass and paving a way for himself ahead of 2027 as well.
Now, when it comes to that, number one, until we get to 2026, we won't even know who is alive to contest and who is not alive.
Okay.
It is people who are alive. It is people who see 2026 primaries that can contest election in 2027. That's that. But like we were saying, yes, he could go around and boast and brag. That is not to say that he has the party under his feet. Some of those even in the party who ordinarily would have supported him before now, with the events of the last 4 months, if he can be doing what he's doing as a speaker who does not have so much executive power, he is just at this point first among equal, then you will now make him governor and emperor. Governors in Nigeria, in my opinion, are like emperors. So if he can use so much power flagrantly as the speaker, then that state is in danger if you make him the governor. So one of the things that might also be playing out, it's politics. People are praising you because they don't know you. We will show them your true color, right? And the next thing will be what? They started everything. Now he's been showing. You've just seen him. He's the plaintiff. He's the client in the case.
Almost like the adage: "He who the gods want to destroy, they first make mad." Because at some point it seemed as if Obasa was forgive my terms, but as if he was running wild. I wouldn't want to say mad in this context, but he had shown to a very reasonable extent, or a very visible extent, the accusations of flagrant abuse of power and high-handedness that his subordinates had been accusing him of at the Lagos State House of Assembly.
So basically, you will see that it's coming to the fore. He's not level-headed enough to be the governor in a proper Lagos state. Now Lagos is a complex state.
Yeah.
Lagos requires a lot of understanding, requires a lot of effort in carrying people along if you would run that state and run it well. So I think that as of today, he has already plugged himself out to say, I might have the powers, but
I don't have
the character
to be governor.
That's what is playing out.
Now let's talk about the incumbent governor and play a little game of reading meanings. Now, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, unlike the other governors who received the invitation to break fast with Mr. President at the Aso Villa, was absent. A day after, we now see this invitation handed to the Lagos Assembly, in which Obasa was present alongside other lawmakers. Should we read meaning into his absence?
Well, we shouldn't read meaning to his absence. Number one, iftar is a religious function.
Yeah.
Sanwo-Olu is a Christian. So to a large extent, maybe the deputy is a Muslim. The deputy could have represented Lagos if Lagos was to be represented. But I won't read a meaning to his being absent from such a function that much. it also has to do with when was the invitation extended, what were the other schedules that have been put in place. He can see the president, he has relationship with the president, and so sometimes also there are things you will invite some people for and it will excite them. You invite some other children, some other people, it may not necessarily excite them because there are possibly other things that needed to be done at that time that is more important. So I can miss your function and apologize, right? Because what I am supposed to do that is clashing may be something that I won't have opportunity to repeat, and I would not have opportunity. An apology will not be able to solve that.
Now let's talk about his deputy in Miranda. One of the things people said worked against that was the fact that her and the Lagos state governor come from more or less the same area. And in the past sharing formula and states, it's not nice to have two persons of such high status from the same area. Do you think this was part of the reasons why her stepping aside was not as dramatic as others would have made it?
Well, number one, he's got people supporting him in the house. They can decide to make the system ungovernable and nothing would have happened that much, because you couldn't have asked their constituency to withdraw the 36 of them and 10% of the house cannot function. That's that. Yeah. So if they actually wanted to contend, they have a basis to contend. And then remember that he did not push herself forward to become speaker. It was his colleagues who said, okay, since the speaker is the person we have issue against, you are the deputy, step up to be the speaker. So he didn't fight for it, he didn't struggle for it. And so if the party is saying you have not been, it's not proper for you to be there, I think stepping down is also not a big issue. Yes, as to structure and then rotation, Obasa is from Lagos West. Lagos West have 19 other members in the house apart from Obasa. So the next question also will be that out of 20, must you be the only person who will be there permanently? So asking Miranda, the party asking Miranda to step down might not be out of place. In reality, Fashola is from Lagos Central. He was their governor 8 years. Then it went to the east for 4 years. That's somebody. And then back to the center. Now, the Lagos West has never produced the governor of Lagos State, despite having the highest number of state constituency, despite having the highest number of votes, despite claiming or appearing like the most formidable force in the Lagos, from the days of Action Group to UPN to SDP to AD to ACN till they are now in APC. They have always been the most formidable and the strongest part of the party. So denying them an opportunity to be in the top 3 may also not be fair. And that's how he said, oh, to the party supremacy, yes, that would be a direction to go. But however, reverting back to Obasa, for me, ordinarily shouldn't have been the only possible solution. They should have been able to get one out of the other 19. They're already 2 years into, so you can't even call any of the lawmakers now a newbie. They've been there for 18 months.
And they understand the intricacies of the house. So
they all should by now understand the intricacies. So out of 19, you should just have taken one and move forward. But like I said, they possibly have something on him. And allowing him to continue, for me, is to say, okay, carry your baggage. When we get to where we need you. It's now like a player who had a yellow card hanging on him. The next time, you will still give him, even if it's another match and you give him a second yellow card, he knows that he is missing
an accumulated suspension.
It's an accumulated suspension. It's not playing the next game. So that's more like what I see playing out with him.
Political mathematics. Interesting.
Well, we have 10 more minutes in closing, and we'll turn to one issue as it affects the Nigerian workers. Ever since the 70,000 naira new minimum wage was agreed upon, its implementation has been largely questioned. More Nigerian workers are lamenting the lack of disposable income and a decline in purchasing power parity. Members of the Nigerian Youth Service Corps are also aggrieved that a promised 77,000 monthly allowance has not been kept with. The NYSC has issued a circular excusing itself, saying the funds to implement it are yet to arrive. But on the part of federal workers, they're issuing a 21-day ultimatum to the federal government in which they are demanding a review of the newly agreed wage. They are also quite aggrieved with the NLC and NANS over what they feel is a betrayal and empty threats issued to the federal government. And in keeping with this, a lot of people always greet this conversation with the number of those employed under the government services as against Nigerians who have to grapple with the lack of disposable income and a decline in purchasing power parity. But what do you make of this 21-day ultimatum and on the part of 7 core members, a promise made since January that has not yet been fulfilled?
Well, if the promise was made just in January and then the budget for the year is just being signed, you know that January is this year. They are going to definitely be paid from the provision of the budget. So until perhaps the budget is dispensed or circulated and full implementation commences, certain promises that are contained in the budget might not be met. So, but what they need to get, or what those who can speak on their behalf need to get for them, is to say that whatever point the budget begins, implementation commences, and fund releases and warrants are out, their arrears should be paid to them. So it doesn't matter when it commences. Even if you cannot pay all the 3 months arrears at once, you might decide to, but their arrears should be paid to them. So to that extent, when it comes, it will be fine. Although there will now be the question of for what about those who might have completed their service before that happens. But the reality is that you have records with which you pay them. You have their name, you have their BVN number, you have their account details. I think that that should also be made right to them, as long as they confirm that those accounts are still operational. But to the general workers, who is given the 21 days ultimatum, what status has such person to give the ultimatum? Is he as a branch of NLC? Is he as a unit of TUC? Because if you do not have the status or the local standing to take an action, and you take the action, when you get punished, you might not be able to defend yourself. I always tell people that radicalism and rascality are 2 different things.
Yet similar.
You might know they both are talking about change, but somebody is going to get the change and follow the process. The other man is going to break down the law. So you will leave the cause he's fighting and punish him or her for the rascality. Now, after he has been punished for the rascality, if the opportunity is still there, he can now present his case for the change that he wanted. But for any act of rascality, I will believe that the rascality should first of all be what? Be dealt with before you look at the matter. But for radicals, they will know how to go about their process. So as far as I'm concerned, anybody that believes in breakdown of law and order is not a radical, he is a rascal. There's a difference between riot and civil disobedience. Civil disobedience will come from a radical. Riot most time comes from rascals. So they are 2 different things. So for me, has the NLC done enough over the last 2 years? I don't think so. Has NANS been out there doing what is right? I don't think so. I was active in NANS to an extent in my days. And I know that the NANS you have then is not the NANS that you have now.
It's not as energetic as it used to be.
The energy is not there. The carriage is not there. The comportment is not there. For me, when you even bring them, you read their press statement, is filled with lack of understanding of process. It's not just that the tenses sometimes are wrong, it is even that the construction and the idea they are carrying is miscarriage of information. The things they are demanding for, the things they are asking, the things they are supporting or opposing, you just see that the resolution or the release they have made does not even demonstrate understanding. That is not what it used to be. In the past, you see people come to NANS to vibrate. People speak for 1 hour, and you will know that they don't repeat issues and they don't get the issues modeled up, and they're always very clear.
Mr. Ben, I'm glad that you had just mentioned the issue of information and misinformation, but talking about passage of information to Nigerian workers and also to members of the National Youth Service Corps who are aggrieved about the new minimum wage not being paid to them, and then of course the federal workers citing that the 70,000 naira minimum wage was almost like a setup, and that it has only worsened their situation, and they are already crying out for yet another review up from 70,000 to another figure. Has this information as to the disbursement of these funds been properly disseminated to both the federal workers and the NYSC members across the country, whether by the NLC or NANS?
Well, now, when you come to what you pay workers, I think to an extent, NANS is not even there.
Yeah, of course.
What you want to look
NYSC.
at with the NLC clearly is that, you know, when you talk about even NYSC, you can't talk about NANS, because NYSC members are not members of NANS during the service year.
Yeah.
They are more of a paramilitary, right? Yeah. Serving the nation. And that's why I said, because they might not be able to unionize, those who can speak for them, NANS definitely might not be in a good position to speak for corpers.
Yes.
Those who can speak for them, the governing body, welfare association, and the rest of that should be able to speak for them. And like I said, the forum should be created to be sure that, look, this is what has been promised. This is what is in the budget. This is how we are going about it. The issue of dissemination of information is something that should be properly and professionally done. But we also know that across board, even in the media, you have people now who are not trained media person, anchoring and running programs. Yes. And so the ethics and the fundamentals of those things have been decimated. So when you come to the level of NSC, who are they engaging with? They told us about tariff. The telecom tariffs have been increased and nothing had happened. Electricity has gone. People in band A are no longer getting 16 hours now, but they are still paying band A. Nobody is addressing that, but they are talking about, we want to move people, we want to jack up the price in band B and C. That's the talk now, not even about how do you meet up the demand or the requirement of the band A people that you have given promise to previously. So you see that across the services, there are people who are responsible for this information. You have staff welfare. I think now they are added, in some places they are even director, in some other places they are deputy director staff welfare. Yeah. So if you have a deputy director staff welfare, how come that issues of delays, salary adjustment, payment, you see some complain that, oh, they have reduced their money again. Oh yes, maybe in October, November, December they were paid arrears. And then by January you now get your normal package. And then suddenly you think, oh, it's lower than what I had in December. Number one would have been, did they give them pay slip? Is there a document to explain what they earn in October, November, and December that should now at least let them know that this one is a windfall? After some time, it will no longer come. So I think that communication within the system had not been good enough. It is that a lot of people don't know their job or they are not doing it. Or for some, it is just that the attitude to do the job is not there. The first company I worked for after graduation would always pride itself in the fact that we hire for attitude, we train for skill. Their belief is that, look, if the attitude is not there, that fellow might even be untrainable. But if the attitude is right, no matter what the skill gap is, you can make effort to make them catch up, or you might eventually use them for some other roles apart from the role you initially intend to employ them. Why? Because they were trainable, they were malleable. But there are people who come with the wrong attitude. It doesn't matter how intellectually potent or intelligent they are, they will never follow process. And the things in life is always, there is people, there are processes, there are outcomes. Sometimes you need technology to enhance the outcome. Today, virtually everybody in the civil service or in the working environment have emails, they have telephones. So if you cannot send them a phone message, you can send them an email, a broadcast email to everybody, explaining
copy
what the things that are being done are. But the reality is that some still prefer to operate in grapevine. So for you to even know you are supposed to prepare for a promotion exam or for certain allowances at some point, you need to have a friend
who
in
knows,
the GD welfare office. Somebody has to tell somebody and tell somebody. But I think that we should have gone past that era and disseminate information openly and rightly to everybody who should know. When you say your information are secured, we say it is that, number one, it is authentic. Number two is that it is confidential, it has not gone to the wrong people. Number three is that it has integrity. Nobody would have altered it before it got to the right person who should be decoding the information.
All right, Mr. Ben, quite a fine place to end the conversation, but we must thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Always a pleasure to have you here in the studio.